Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin, Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, another day, another dollar. How you doing, brother?
Well, one second. I'm not recording here. All right. I'm doing good. Mike, I'm doing good, brother. Apparently, the Volunteers don't have the number one wide receiver core. I find out, you put one thing out like that, a hot take. I'm coming off an emotional win. Yep. I think the Volunteers got an excellent group back there. I think Tillman did fantastic. Not jumping right into content, but you put that post out there on Twitters, and they've been coming at me left and right saying, well, what about this? So, hey, just my opinion. I don't, we're not going to deep dive into it on this show, but I just think, Tillman won a game for them. I think that's a pretty important part when you're looking at the best receiving course. Now, we may look at this 2-3 more weeks from now and say, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And then I'm going to agree with them. So there's a lot of great wide receivers out there, but I'm just, the point of that, and I just want to get this out, Mike, obviously, it's been weighing on me, is we were talking about right now, body of proof, who's done more for their team, and that's why I was so high on the Tennessee Volunteers.
And now you guys know why Shane don't put out these lists, quarterback rankings and player
hell
rankings.
No.
And he don't want all this negativity coming his way.
You threw that out there. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to have to mute notifications for a while. So I don't mind. I mean, everybody's opinion matters, and I'm a firm believer in that. And then Twitter's a great outlet for that. Sometimes we talk too much on there. But, no, I think a lot of teams have got a lot to be excited for, and I'm no different. So that was my perspective, and but my opinion is my opinion. It may not matter to anybody.
Well, Shane, hey, before we get rolling here, just want to give a shout out to a loyal listener of the show, Tristan. He's an Aggie, and he sent us. He's the latest one, Shane, to send us some gear. We got a Texas A&M.
All right.
Towel over here, so we got that in the studio now. We're open to anything and everything you want to set. Everything you pretty much see around here. We got Aggie gear. We got Mizzou chips. We got Jared Lorenzen here, the statue. I mean, anything you want to send us, we'll put it on the show. We want to represent all 14 SEC teams. So I just want to give a shout out to Tristan for helping this set become a little bit more all SEC.
I love it, Mike. I love it. And it's, it's a fans podcast. We built this because of them, and they're helping build the show. And at some point we're going to be face to face every time we have one of these episodes. So anything like that you send in eventually is going to make it to the studio. So we appreciate that. And again, we appreciate everybody taking their time to listen to that SEC podcast.
Yeah. And just real quick, Shane, I just want to make a little note here. I know we always ask for the ratings and reviews in exchange for a koozie. I just wanted to let the Georgia people know we're out. We are completely out of Georgia koozie, so I got to order more. So if you send in that review, we'll still send you out a koozie, but it's just going to take a little bit extra. And for the Arkansas, we got a lot of Arkansas fans, Shane. We are down to about 5 Razorback koozies, so I'm going to order some more of Arkansas, but get them in while you can. Represent this college football season. And, you get those by giving us a 5-star written review on the Apple Podcast app, and just send those on over to that SEC podcast at gmail.com. But Shane, hey, it's not often where Cousin Shane has a theme and an idea for how we're going to do this show. So we have got one heck of a show lined up, Shane. I love when we can hit on all 14 SEC clubs. We're going to be able to do that here in just a second. And, man, I forgot to even mention, we got one heck of a guest lined up here. It's been a while since we've had him on. Chris Phillips. You know him as the host of the Spurs Up Show.
Yeah.
Talking some Gamecock football, previewing the Georgia game. And he don't sound too high on them Gamecocks going into Saturday, does he?
No, he does not, man. But he did find some glimmers of hope in there, and I think that's important because you got to remember this is year 2 of Beamer, and it's not time to panic, which is kind of leading into our theme. But I'm looking forward to what they're going to do next. In fact, Mike, we're planning a trip out there probably in November, watching Tennessee Vols take on the Gamecocks. So it'd be good to see a lot of fans while we're down there.
Yeah, no doubt, Shane. So you want to break down the show topic since you're the one that kind of came up with it. What was the theme of the show that you wanted to go with?
Here's the thing. I throw Mike a lot of raw data. You know, I get on there and that, what do you call that message thing I do all the time? I get on there on the iPhones.
The voice app?
Yeah, the voice thing, you know, so I'll just kind of ramble like I do on this show, you know, and then Mike tries to find a couple of nuggets and piece it together. So that's kind of what we did here, is we want to touch on every team because there's a lot of teams 2-3 games in right now. They're like, you know, maybe they had different expectations, higher expectations, lower expectations. Maybe they're right on par where they're planning on being. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about each team and our thoughts on, you know, should we buy, sell, or what was the third one?
Hold.
Hold, yeah. I don't like to hold a lot, you know. So, but we're gonna hold on a few teams. So, you know, because we got a lot of people like the Gamecocks, like you know, some of the Texas A&M fans, Arkansas fans, Mizzou. You know, there's a lot of different fans out there that are kind of like, I don't know if this is exactly where we want to be. And maybe I shouldn't pin Arkansas in there; they're doing all right, but there's a lot that's kind of on that bubble, and they, you know, is this a year we look for a new coach? Is this a year, you know, that we hire or fire some coordinators or whatnot? So that's kind of what we wanted to do, is just touch on each team and what we thought, you know, each program as far as expectations are with us.
Yeah, and
I hope that made sense. That may not make sense. That's what Mike's there. He'll edit and clean this up.
Yeah, let's start in the SEC West, Shane. Just go in alphabetical order here, but so basically buy, sell, or hold. Now that you know, we talk around about this stuff for months on end.
Yeah. Now
that we've actually seen some football, we've only seen a couple of conference games. We're going to see a couple more on Saturday that maybe dictate, you know, the true answers to these questions. But let's start with Alabama, Shane, coming off a 1-point victory on the road at Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the same issues we saw last year, Shane, on the offensive line still plagued the Crimson Tide. Receiver was a strength last season. Of course, the receivers got hurt and they lost the title game, but they have not had any receivers step up to be in near the quite capacity they did last season. So are you buying Alabama right now? Are you selling Alabama, or are you holding Alabama? What's your thoughts?
Oh, well, I tell you what, I was selling the shit out of them when I was losing that money because I went the other way on the spread. But, you know, Mike, right now I think with Alabama, they got a lot of things going on, and they're still trying to find their identity. It's not last year. It's not. I hate the whole revenge thing, which we kind of played up ourselves here in the offseason. But we got it's a new group. It's a new group of individuals trying to figure out the chemistry and figure out what makes them tick. And I don't think they quite found it yet. I don't think they were, you know, really pushed too hard week 1. Week 2 was a true test going down there to Austin. But, you know, they did come away with a victory, and that's the main thing. So for me, Mike, I think I'm holding right now. I'm not quite buying in because, you know, the expectations for Alabama were extremely high. I didn't think any of these games would be close, especially the Texas matchup. But I'm not selling either because this is a great program. They do find ways to win, and they probably got arguably the best quarterback in the country. So that's always the deciding factor on those 50-50 games. So I'm going to hold firm right now with Alabama, and that's just because I think they came down to earth a little bit this last week. And I think it's good for fans, you know, especially to realize that, hey, you know, nothing's given in the SEC. So when we go through the slate of West schedule, you know, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get to an SEC championship because everybody still has a bullseye on Alabama. This was Texas Sarkisian prior to, you want to talk about the championship, but you saw the fans show up. Everybody was out there to beat Alabama, and that's what they're going to see day in, day out, and every Saturday. So I'm holding firm, but Alabama's got some improvement to do this week.
Yeah, they played about as poorly as you could ever have seen a Nick Saban team, and they still won the ball game.
Yeah.
And that speaks to their outstanding quarterback that's been battle-tested, Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
He's just incredible, particularly clutch. He's so clutch.
Yeah.
But, I thought they were going to just destroy Texas. So I got to admit I was dead wrong about that. Mm-hmm. But also, unlike most people, I thought, I didn't think they were going to steamroll through this schedule. So I'm a little bit 50-50. I don't quite say sell because they haven't even lost a damn game yet.
Right.
I'm kind of right there with you with hold. But given the fact that they struggled so mightily at Texas, which maybe we just criminally underrated, they still have to go to LSU, to Ole Miss, to Arkansas, to Tennessee. If they can't handle a little heat in Austin, how are they going to handle all those places? And don't forget Mississippi State comes to their building, and I know they owned Mississippi State last year, but this is a different Mississippi State, and Mississippi State, they've actually won more games on the road in the SEC than they have at home, Shane, under Mike Leach. So that is something to keep in your back pocket. Mississippi State knows how to play away from Starkville. So I will say hold for now, but I am very close to selling on Alabama.
Oof. I'm not close to selling, but I mean, this is a destiny team, right? But because you look at some of the national championship runs they've done in the past, there have been these games, and that's why I'm holding, is because maybe this was the wake up call they needed.
Now, how about Arkansas, Shane? We've been hyping them up so much this offseason. They have clearly lived up to that expectation, maybe even a little bit better. What's your thoughts on the Arkansas Razorbacks? Buy, sell, or hold?
Buy. This is a team that I think is further along than I thought. I gave them credit for. I did not predict them to be this good in the West so far. Now I know it's early. The test we've got is Cincinnati. We've got South Carolina, but it was just mistakes that they made week 1, they cleaned up week 2. I think that was the big one. That's more coaching. But second is it's just this line of scrimmage, man. These big uglies up front, we've heard about them all off season. They're just pushing people around at will. They're running the ball. Anything they want to do, they're doing, and they're still holding stuff back. That's what's scary, is Arkansas is holding a lot back, and they did last week. So, again, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best. He's playing the best that he can, and I want all the Arkansas I can get right now.
Shane, you already know my answer here. Bye. I mean, Arkansas, they probably have the best offense in the SEC, and I know people, they want to discredit KJ, they want to discredit these receivers. It's not even really about them, even though that there's no issue there. The thing that makes Arkansas stand out, Shane, there's one thing in football that means more to me than anything, and that's running the football when the opponent knows you're going to run it, and they can't stop you. And that's what Sam Pittman has built right there. It's just icing on the cake that he's got a quarterback that can chuck it down the field, these huge receivers. They're just so balanced. Now, we'll see if they can run on Alabama. We'll see if they can run on A&M. I mean, there's going to be some big tests for the Arkansas Razorbacks down the line, but they deserve to be top 10. I think they deserve to be top 5. And before we move on, Shane, I got to play this clip. Sam Pittman, just because he's hyping up his top 10 ranking, believe it or not everybody's buying into the hype there in Fayetteville.
Well, I think it's a big deal. I do. Everybody always looks at the negative all the time, and I tweeted out that we were number 10, and then I got some responses, well, it doesn't matter. Well, I ain't tweeting it out to you guys or a 50-year-old man. I'm trying to use his recruiting, so I really don't care what the guy says, you know what I mean? I'm trying to recruit. not him or them, a recruit. And so we're proud of it. Sure, we're proud of it. And that doesn't mean that that's where we want to stay, or it's hard to be in the top 10. We've done it 2 years in a row. The kids have done it, and the coaches, the assistant coaches have done it. Yeah, I'm proud of it. Sure am. Whenever it came out, I was smiling ear to ear. Now, what that means right now, it means that we're number 10 today, and I tweeted it out. I'm proud of it.
Oh, I mean, how dumb can you be? I mean, I know on the last episode, Shay, we played this Kirby. You know, they don't care about number one.
Mm-hmm.
You better bet your ass they're selling to every recruit on the trail. We're number one. You know, we're national champs. We're going to do it again. I mean, this is just Arkansas's version of it. And anybody mocking Arkansas for saying they're a top 10 program, they probably haven't touched the top 10 in several years. You know what?
Hey, man, we do the same thing over here, Mike. I'm always like, I don't care about those damn numbers. Let's just get on here and have fun. Then I'll screenshot top 50, podcast, and I'll send it your way. And I'm like, looky there. So, I just think it's confirmation of the work that you've put into it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it, because these guys weren't handed a top 10 ranking. They've earned it. So I think that's really important. And like Sam says, this is a big recruiting tool, you big dummies, so stop making fun of it. So I love it. That's a great coach, man. I just love Sam.
Yeah. About 3 years ago, Shane, they were top 10 worst. You know what I mean? Like, have some appreciation for what's been going on there.
Seriously. I'm surprised Disney hasn't picked up the story on this thing yet.
All right. How about the Auburn Tigers, Shane? Buy, hold, or sell with this big Penn State game coming on the docket?
Oh, Mike, this one's a tough one for me, and I'm going to hold right now. I'm a little worried, because that should not have been a ball game last week, brother. Yeah. Oh, man, I hate to switch it, but no, I'm not going to do it. Going into Penn State, I'm going to hold firm right now. I'm going to give San Jose a little bit of credit. Maybe they went in with a vanilla, plan because they didn't want to show too much to Franklin and company coming in. The fact of the matter is, did they get the victory? Yes. So that's what they've got to continue to do. They've got home field advantage for about 6 more weeks, I think, down there. So just keep soaking it up and keep winning. It doesn't have to be pretty as long as there's a victory on the left side of that scoreboard. So I'm going to hold right now because they've got a lot coming at them. And if this team can really, we know they can run. They still got to work some. For me, Mike, I've got to see a little bit more equal play on both sides of the ball. It can't just be running. The quarterback, we've got to get some action downfield. I know it's probably the least favorite wide receiver crew right now, but there is some talent in that room. They got to find somebody. They got to find a couple of them to stretch this field and make it a little bit easier for Tank and the guys. So I'm holding right now, just given the fact that this is exactly where we expected them to be. There wasn't high expectations coming into the season, and they've not fallen. Now, it didn't look pretty last week, but, Penn State's going to be a true test.
Well, I hate to do it, Shane, but this is going to be my first sell. Them Auburn Tigers, it's only been 2 games. They are undefeated. We shouldn't be panicking. This is, the record we all anticipated it would be, but just looks so sloppy against a really, really poor San Jose State. Now, the silver lining, Shane, you kind of hit on it there. Man, this thing can go skyrocketing in a hurry if you beat Penn State, nationally televised. You got Missouri coming in after that at home. That is a team I think every Auburn fan thinks you should beat. So there's some real momentum here, and who knows what LSU is going to look like. That'll be the next one. There's a real opportunity, Shane, that Auburn can be 5-0. They got to get over this first massive challenge to getting that 5-0. But I just don't have confidence in them to do it at this point in time, particularly win all those ball games. But I may be changing my tune in a hurry, Shane, if they rock Penn State at home with what should be one of the best home field advantages of the weekend, not only in the SEC but in the country.
And I guess maybe I should have been a little bit more clear, because I'm going off expectations coming into the season. Nobody was expecting Auburn to just run, the schedule and go 12-0, but we were expecting 2-0, and that's exactly where they were. They haven't been pretty at times, but they're still getting the work done. Now, that could change because expectations are keeping, maybe not even winning Penn State, but keeping it close, keeping it, this should be a game that's decided in the late quarters. If that's the case, I'm still good with that because that was my expectation. So maybe that's why I didn't clarify. That's why I'm holding, just because I'm not expecting them to win the West.
All right, how about Ole Miss, Shane? On the road this week at Georgia Tech. Could be a little bit of a tricky game. I don't anticipate much of a home field for the Yellow Jackets. You buying, selling, or holding the Ole Miss Rebels?
I'm buying. And the reason I'm buying is because I was one of the worst ones that anybody had ever talked to me about Ole Miss. I said they're going to fall straight on their face, man. And I don't know what it is with Lane Kiffin. He's just got it. He finds the best 11 to put out there. And sometimes you question it. Sometimes you scratch your head wondering why the hell he made that decision. But it doesn't matter because it typically leads to good things. And so sometimes you just got to let go of the reins and just say, you know what? You got it, Lane. Do you. And if it's required, hitting the transfer portal. I mean, he comes up with that sweater, that hoodie on, Did you see that?
Yeah, transfer to the SIP.
Yeah. Transfer the SIP. That is it. That's a free agency down there. And if they can continue to capitalize on that, it's freaking brilliant. So they keep finding victories and not just some. They're beating the brakes off. Now, they're not powerhouse programs. That hasn't been tested yet, but I don't know. They're finding momentum at the right time, so I'm buying.
I'm holding, Shane, because we'll find out a little bit more about Ole Miss this weekend against Georgia Tech. It'll be the first time they're playing somebody with a pulse. But I'm a little concerned that they still, I know it's just 2 games, but we still have no idea who the quarterback is down there. And this has got to be the first time that I can recall that's ever happened on a Lane Kiffin coached team. So,
question. Lane, what can you tell us about Luke Altmaier's injury status? Anything learned on that since
Yeah, he was out there today. I think he'll be all right. And so we're just going to push forward the way that we've been going. And we're 2-0. And so, we'll figure out who goes first, at some point later in the week, probably.
The rest of the pieces around the quarterback really seem to be playing well. The defense, I'm buying the defense for sure. Running game remains elite, but it's very hard for me to get a read on this team. And, I feel like I can give you a more concrete answer after watching Georgia Tech, particularly after they face Kentucky at home here in a couple weeks. But that ain't the game, Shane. We're doing it right now. I got to say I'm holding on Ole Miss because they're right where they should be. But, they could still go one of 2 ways. I really do think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think it's a little early, but I don't know. And I kept telling myself this, they start out with this cupcake schedule. People are going to buy in, and look at Shane's all in. He's like, just keep scoring, man.
All right. How about Mississippi State, Shane? I think I already know the answer, but going into Death Valley 2-0, haven't been touched really this football season. Buy, sell, or hold the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Bye, baby. This is how many times people are going to call me Mississippi State homer because I'm head over heels for this program. They're fun to watch. Forget the stats. Just watch the games. They're exciting. The play calling, you just don't know where it's coming from. The quarterback, Mr. Rogers, he's finally figured it out, and he's changing plays at the. We're talking 4th and goal, and it was supposed to be running out the clock or trying to get them off sides. he decides to go for it. What other quarterback in the SEC is getting away with that? So you talk about control. This is just a fun team to watch, and it's both sides of the ball. The defense is like it's like hitting a hornet's nest, and they're just all over you, you know. So I'm all in on Mississippi State. It's a shame that they're not a top 25 team, but they will, brother. At the end of this year, they will end a top 25 program for sure.
Yeah, there's no other answer than bye for Mississippi State right now, playing red hot, the best football they've ever played under Mike Leach. And the defense is aggressive. They're tenacious. They're forcing turnovers. They keep playing like that. Man, they could be in for a dream season. The only ones upset, Shane, are some of these diehard Mississippi State fans. They love being disrespected. They don't want us to hide. They want it to still be a secret that Mississippi State, one of the most dangerous teams in college football, heading into a real test this weekend. We'll find out a lot about Mississippi State in Death Valley Saturday, but I'm buying the stock right now for Mike Leach and company. And speaking of LSU, next on the docket here, Shane, LSU Tigers 1-1. You buying, selling, or holding the Tigers?
Oh, Mike, that's a tough one. I'm going to go hold. I'm going to go hold right now. I think obviously Southern's not a huge matchup. It was a good rebound. It was perfect timing for scheduling. But I think if they could go against Florida State one more time, if they're playing in week 3, I think we have a different outcome. So, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of pressure down there, not just from fan bases, but from administration. They brought Brian Kelly in there to win and win now. That's not going to be easy to do, but I think they're on the right path. I think they're on the right track. So for that, I'm going to just say hold.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, Shane, but I think by Saturday night, Sunday morning, we can give a more concrete answer, because I will, this may be a little bold, but if LSU loses to Mississippi State, Shane, I don't think they're going to go to a bowl game. Because to get to that 6th win, I think they were counting Florida State. I think they were counting Mississippi State. So if you're already down 2 of the, I'm not calling them easy wins or anything. I'm not trying to disrespect Mississippi State or Florida State. But I just think LSU really need at least one of those to get to a bowl game, if not both. So I'm holding for now, but I am on the edge of selling LSU and their chances this season. All right, how about Texas A&M? Maybe the easiest one on the board, Shane. Them Aggies, 1-1, lost to Appalachian State. You buying, selling, or holding them Texas A&M Aggies?
Sail with me. I don't know if that's a song, but it should be, because I am selling right now. This is not, and who would buy? Who, seriously, in their right mind right now, other than if you're just a diehard fan, who's buying anything that Jimbo's saying right now? I mean, it's a hot mess. And, the schedule, you heard Paul Feinbaum, right? Have you played that clip?
Yeah.
That was the question before the season. Who's the third best team? Some people thought it was A&M. I'm not here to make fun of Jimbo Fisher. His record does that already.
Paul Feinbaum, he hit the nail on the head. You don't have to bash Jimbo in Texas A&M right now, because that schedule is doing it for them. So, or the record. So, I'm selling on them, and it's not that they can't win games. It's not that I've just given up on them. It's just my expectations for Texas A&M was to win the West, Mike. I had them winning the SEC championship. They still could do that, but let's be realistic right now. I don't see that happening when you're losing to App State and, Sam Houston is giving you a run for your money. The quarterback situation is no better shape than it was week 1. There is no identity. There is no running. There's the only good thing on this team is defense. Even special teams is terrible. So, I guess Sawchain. Other than him. But there is athletes on this program. There is a lot of young talent, but I'm not convinced that they find it anytime soon. I'm just not.
Right, and arguably the roughest patch of their season's coming right up here. So
yeah.
You kind of have to buy, or excuse me, you have to sell them Aggies, the opposite of buying. Just, man, hopefully they get it corrected, but so much negativity towards Haynes King and the passing offense. You know what's really the issue down there, Shane, with a young quarterback? They need to get this running game going. I think that's the most disappointing thing with Texas A&M. They're supposed to be maulers. They've got elite linemen down there. They've got great running backs. A-Chain was a Heisman dark horse. He certainly isn't at this point in time unless he just puts the team on his back. But he can't do it himself, Shane. They got blocked for him. And that has been a major, major issue. And it's forcing Haynes King to try to win him some of these games. And he's just, he's not shown that he's that caliber. At least not yet. He's still young in his career. We'll find out here against Miami. If they can't run the ball against Miami, man, they'll probably lose that game too, Shane. So it's going to come down to that. But for now, we got to sell them Texas A&M Aggies. I said it last week, not hitting the panic button. We're smashing the panic button at this point in time.
Yeah, and there's just nothing. I thought maybe I'd fire an offensive line coach or something, I mean, right. Show the country that this is not acceptable. But no, he's going to sit there in his damn playbook, and yeah, I'm out. I'm out on Texas A&M right now.
All right, the SEC East, Shane, how about them Florida Gators? 1-1, huge win, low. I mean, it was a quality opponent. Let's not shortchange Kentucky, but a tough loss. Buy, sell, or hold the Florida Gators.
Buy. I'm buying. And the reason I'm buying the Florida Gators right now is because expectations were low coming into the season. They just shot up because they beat a top 10 team in the country, Right. They went toe-to-toe with another top 11 team in the country, and it came down to the end. So I want all the Florida Gators I can get because they have got something with their quarterback. And I know Anthony Richardson took a hit last week, but he's still an X factor. He's still a dynamic player. He's still going to make great plays and take over games. They're going to have to find someone else outside of him. They got to get this passing game corrected quickly. I know they like to run. I think ETN's doing great, but this team is further along, in my opinion, than I thought they would be at this point. I thought they would have lost to Utah. I thought they would have lost to, even though I predicted them. I'm an SEC homer. Let's just call it like it is. But I thought they would lose to Kentucky, and I thought that Florida would be in worse shape and possibly spiraling. They're not. There's a lot of anticipation down there. The recruiting class is still going good. I'm convinced they got the best coach in the country for their job and for their position.
Right.
So yeah, give me all the Florida I can get right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Shane. I think you got to buy the Gators. And just because they lost to Kentucky, I think that says more about Kentucky than it does Florida. One thing that has plagued the Gators in recent years is just dreadful defense. That defense has, been pretty solid here early in the season. I realize they're lacking depth. They put a lot on Anthony Richardson's shoulders, but that's just that's what it is till they get better players. And if you look around, Shane, some of their games you anticipate being the toughest, A&M, LSU, suddenly those don't look as daunting as they did. So Florida, still a lot of hopes in front of them. That in 2 weeks they come to Tennessee. That may determine the success of their season. But we both know all too well that Florida Gators have a way of showing up in that ball game. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even want to talk about it, Mike, because I don't know if you saw it in my face, but I just went back and I was like, damn, they did. I think about all those games that we should have won, but we didn't because we've got that thing we can't get by with Florida. So hopefully that changes this year, but that's why I'm buying because, they made it through a tough part of their schedule here. And I'm not saying it gets easier, but I think it gets a little bit more. I don't know. These 50-50 games is what I like. Kentucky shouldn't have been a 50-50 game, in my opinion. I think Kentucky's a better program right now. But they're going to face a lot of programs coming up that are. And, man, you still got Anthony Richardson over there. So how can you ever count them out? So, you got a new coach. You just, they just empty the cabinets, people are transferring now, people left. So this is a 2-3 year rebuild that you're already hitting now. I mean, you're a top 25 team still. So
right.
No, I'm all for him.
Now, this may be, I've already said this once or twice, but the easiest call on the board, the Georgia Bulldogs, Shane, 2-0, just ran through Oregon. Yeah. Did whatever they wanted to Sanford. Now they're going on the road to South Carolina this weekend. Buy, sell, or hold the Georgia Bulldogs.
I guess you could say hold, because I've been buying all off season and they've done nothing to. I mean, in fact, they're further along than I thought. I mean, the Oregon game was awesome. Last week they didn't really have to show much, didn't need to show much. You just wanted them to stay healthy, and they almost didn't do that. So, but I'm all on the Dogs right now. These guys are some bad dudes, and I don't want to play them. I don't want to face them. And if I was a Georgia fan, I'd be already booking my tickets to Atlanta. I may be even setting up national championship things, because you're going, and unless somebody gets hurt or the wheels fall off, and I don't see that happening right now. Kirby is a man on a mission, and so is this program. So bye.
Yeah, you have to buy the Georgia Bulldogs, Shane. I mean, we thought they were the clear-cut favorite in the East. They look like the clear favorite in the country now. I mean, that is a big jump in 2 weeks' time, but that's just how impressive they have been. And, they almost got – we'll get to Kentucky in just a moment here, but, what Kentucky has got, I think that helps them so much, is just that chip on their shoulder. I can never recall, Shane, a national champion having a chip on their shoulder, but that's what they seem to have down there in Athens with Stetson Bennett and a lot of these defenders that, even though they're 5-star elite talents, stepping into new roles there in Athens.
Right.
Just just a huge chip on all the shoulders there in Athens, and it is showing early, and I am a little concerned about what's going to happen this weekend there in Columbia. Now, how about, I just referenced it, Shane, the Kentucky Wildcats, 2-0, top 10 in the country. Buy, sell, or hold the Wildcats.
Buy. This is another one. They were counted out again. It's like every time they do something good, there's 3 or 4 of us talking heads that start chitting on them and telling them they don't belong where they're supposed to be. But Kentucky is a top 10 program right now. They've got it, man. They've got a quarterback that can play in the NFL. They've got some of the best. I'm telling you, if you've not watched a Kentucky game, it's some of the best play calling on both sides of the ball I have seen. They dial up blitzes at the right time. The schemes, the on the offensive side. I mean, it's art, man. And if they can continue to do that and be unpredicted, Kentucky's going to win a lot of ball games. So that's why I like them right now. The offensive line showed improvement in the game, which is rare. Typically we're like, well, this offensive line sucked today, or this offensive line, was great today. But it started out bad, and it's like you felt them grow up during that Florida game. And then they realized not only did they belong there, but they're going to win this thing. So they keep that mentality going in forward. They're going to win, like I said, a lot of games here. So I'm buying the Kentucky Wildcats. Yeah,
I mean, that's the only answer you can have, Shane. They just won arguably the most impressive football game of the young season, and they're, at least for now, on a collision course with the Georgia Bulldogs there. They get to host Georgia. Maybe this really is a dream season, and I cannot wait, Shane, for after every damn victory, these Big Blue Nation people in my mentions nonstop. I've been looking forward to that all season long. I put it out there, so I got to take it. But, man, Will Levis is looking like, all the hype. He's living up to it for sure. I cannot get over how impressive he was in that Florida game. I mean, he's the passing game. He's the rushing game. He is just, everything they need down there in Lexington. And who knows, maybe he does carry them to their first ever SEC East title this season.
Come on now.
Now, the Missouri Tigers, Shane, buy, sell, or hold after the really rough loss there at Kansas State.
I'm holding right now. I think expectations are obviously a little bit higher up there in Columbia than they are in the country. But, you know, if you take one of those 30,000 feet views of the program, I think they're okay. You know, I don't think you'd like them to be further along, you know, because you can only make excuses for Eli so long. But what he's doing with the recruiting, what he's doing with his roster, it's like he's trying to get the best 11 out, you know, kind of like I was talking earlier about Lane. You know, he's still trying to form his team, it feels like, because there is some young talent that he's brought in that is starting to show, and they didn't get a lot of action last week, but I'm telling you, the Mizzou team that you see now compared to the Mizzou team you see here in about 8 weeks is going to look totally different. There's some things being worked on that we don't see that's being covered in practice and film study, so and workout you know, I'm telling you, there's some guys that just got to get some weight on them, and once they get SEC ready, they can be real contributors for the Mizzou Tigers. So for that, knowing what he's working with and where they're at, you'd love to have seen him win last week, but I'm going to hold right now with Mizzou Tigers.
And you got to remember, like you say, Shane, where the expectations were in the preseason. I mean, this was a consensus 6th best team in the East. And, you know, so far, I mean, that's maybe accurate, but hell, Shane, I bet you 99 out of 100 Missouri fans, and I'm not saying they're going to, you know, it's not a lock that they're going to beat Auburn, but if you were to ask 100 Mizzou fans, would you rather lose to Kansas State but go on the road and beat Auburn? I think 99 out of 100 would say yes to that, and there's, you know, that's on the table.
Right.
Again, this weekend may dictate that for Auburn. If they just get destroyed on national television and, you know, they're going to fire up, you're going to see the articles already, Shane. Who will be Auburn's next coach? What's Brian Harson's buyout? I mean, they're going to have to put up with that drama for a week at least. So I'm not selling Mizzou just yet. I'm holding because there's still a possibility that they surprise some people. They really got to get some steady quarterback play and get a little bit more creative on offense, I think.
Absolutely. And the schedule, like you said, you got Abilene Christian, you got Auburn. That's 2 games that you should win, could win. I don't want to say Auburn. Auburn's one of those that could be a toss-up.
Right.
But if you could come away with a victory, you know, obviously you lose to Georgia. Who knows what happens with Florida? You beat them before. Then Vandy and South Carolina. I mean, New Mexico State. There's some very winnable games. So at the end, the body of proof, you know, there's a real shot. You're going bowling, and, you know, you're just building something. It's a slow build, but patience is a virtue, and I think if you could be patient up there in Mizzou, I think Eli is your guy.
And now, how about the Tennessee Vols, Shane? 2-0, just won on the road against a ranked Pitt team. Buy, sell, or hold them Vols.
Did you turn me orange again, Mike? Because I am buying the Tennessee Volunteers, baby. I'm buying them for, you know, because of what I saw from week 1 to week 2. Where's the pressure in week 1? Well, it's constant in week 2. They took something that wasn't working and they made it better. The offense, I think, you know, it fluttered at times, and I think those are, again, mistakes that they needed to make to improve. This program isn't one individual. You know, we talk about Anthony Richardson down in Florida. We talk about Will Levis in Kentucky. Yeah, Hendon Hooker is a very good quarterback, but there are several weapons around him that are making him better. And that's what I like about the Tennessee Volunteers is how they're starting to spread out and more people are starting to shine, not just on offense, but on defense as well. So I'm buying the Tennessee Volunteers right now.
Yeah, you hit on the most important thing, Shane. You got to buy right now, and it's because of that defense that everybody was trashing all off season. I'm not saying there will beaters here. They're probably going to take some lumps in SEC play, but as long as they make a difference when it comes to turning the ball over, getting to the quarterback, making plays on the field like they did in the toughest game they've played so far this season, and once that offense, I mean, we've seen it in spurts. It's still not clicked for a full game. I mean, hell, they may score 50 points per game if that thing starts clicking. They're right now at 44 points per game, so it's not much more to ask. 2 field goals or a touchdown per game. Tennessee, one of the hottest teams right now in the SEC, in the country, Shane. And I don't know if you've seen this. They just announced it. The Florida game in 2 weeks is officially a sellout. There's speculation there's going to be the checkerboard kneeling. They're going to be breaking out the black uniforms. I mean, they're throwing everything they can on this Florida game. And that's the way it is at Tennessee. You beat Florida, you're on your way to a magical season. It's such an important game. But I am buying the Tennessee Vols heading into that matchup, provided, of course, they beat Akron, which are a 50-point favorite over. Now, how about South Carolina, Shane? 1-1 right now. You buying, selling, or holding the Gamecocks?
I'm holding right now. There's a couple of things that really worries me, and it's that line of scrimmage, and that's something you can't coach up. That's not something you can easily fix. They're having trouble. We had an excellent interview that you played here, that touched on it. They're having trouble at the defensive side, but they're having trouble just running the ball too. So when you can't run or stop the run, that is a disaster when you hit SEC play. And we saw that a little bit with Arkansas. I'm holding though, because I saw the fight. This is a team that was down, that was, not out, but down week 1 against Georgia State, that found a way to win. Mm-hmm. This is a team that was getting their teeth kicked in with the Arkansas Razorbacks, but managed to crawl back into it and make it a game toward the end of the end of regulation. So this is a gritty team, and I like that. This is a team that has a chip on the shoulder. They're playing. I mean, this is Beamer ball, man, and they're not a team that you could just easily pencil a victory against anymore. This is a team that if you come ill prepared, they will surprise you and beat you. So I'm holding. It's a tough schedule. You got Arkansas, you got Georgia. I mean, damn, this is Clemson. There's a lot of tough games on your schedule, but there's also a lot of games that I could easily see South Carolina sneak up and bite somebody, because they do got playmakers. They do got an excellent quarterback, and if they ever figure out this running game, they could surprise a few people. So I'm holding right now in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, Shane. Hold for the Gamecocks. You hit on a lot of the issues. I'm very close to selling though, but I'm not going to decide that based on the Georgia game, because again, they're just so dominant. But I'm a little concerned the inconsistency of the offense. They've got so many pieces, but again, none of that fireworks is worth anything if they can't block, which you referenced there, and that is just a major issue for the Gamecocks right now. They need their own Sam Pittman, not the head coach, but the offensive line coach to come in there. We'll get to our interview here with Chris Phillips in a second, but that's what he is focused on. I mean, they are just going heavy on the offense and defensive line in the current recruiting cycle, and that's pretty telling of where they are on the field. South Carolina was a team that pulled an upset or two last season. They're going to have to do that again if they are going to have an 8-win season, maybe even a 7-win season. How about this stat, Shane? I pulled this right before they played Arkansas. So they had 11 games remaining. Yeah. 7 were against top 25 teams. So, I mean, it's just a gauntlet there. Ugh. And, it's kind of been said to death with the Gamecocks, but it seems to be playing out at least early in the season. But they may be better than they were last year, but the overall record may not show it, again, unless they pull an upset or two.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least, Shane, Vanderbilt, buy, hold, or sell them. Them Commodores, Shane, 2-1. Oh, Lord, they've already went over the over-under.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You got to think expectations here. They hit the number. So I'm going to hold because, hell, I may even buy. You know what? I'm going to buy on Vandy. And the reason I'm doing that, Mike, is because they did come out and they beat two teams handedly in Elon and Hawaii. And then, they went toe-to-toe with Wake. And if they didn't have a quarterback, who knows, they probably would have won that game. But even having a quarterback, it's a two-score game in the third. So I think they played hard, very gritty bunch, and they're going to win more games this year. And that's better than what Vegas thought, and that's better what you and I thought. So, yeah, I'm buying on Vandy right now.
Oh, no, hold on a second, Shane. I bet the over for for them Commodores, because I knew that. I've already hit on that one. But, yeah, I mean, you have to buy Vanderbilt. Shane, they're so fun on offense. They've got young talent emerging all over the field. Yes, Mike Wright, he's got a long way to go to be a complete quarterback, but he is a game breaker with his speed, with his running ability, and he has connected on many a touchdowns. I believe he leads the SEC right now, Shane, with 10 touchdowns. So when you got a quarterback, you got a fighting chance. And I think there is an outstanding chance based on what we've seen that Vanderbilt snaps that SEC losing streak and sneaks up and gets somebody this season. We were saying that was a possibility before the season, and now that we've actually seen them on the field, I think they can get it done. But, it's going to take a really good game. It's going to take some turnovers forced. But based on what we've seen, they have it in them to do just that.
Well, I want to ask you about the other kid, though. Do you think this is a two-quarterback system moving forward?
I mean, possibly, and maybe you want to do that anyway because
Swan, that's what I was thinking.
The true freshman, yeah. I mean, he's a Clark Lee recruit. He's a lot better passer, but Mike Wright, clearly a leader, dynamic with his legs. But the reason I say that, Shane, and certainly I hope Mike Wright doesn't get injured at all, but when you run your quarterback as much as that, particularly in the SEC, he's going to get dinged up. So maybe you play this other quarterback. It's not so much, you don't want to be so predictable that you're bringing in one guy to pass, one guy to throw. I'm not suggesting that. But if you can eliminate 10 hits on your quarterback by playing another quarterback that's very, very talented, I think Vanderbilt is in a position right now where that would be a smart idea.
No, I think so. And any competitive edge you have and having a game plan for both of these guys may not be a bad idea. So just interesting, how productive he was coming in that Wake game. I'm just wondering if that's just another tool that Lee and them can use. So,
right.
I'm buying on Vandy for sure.
Now, Shane, one last thing before we call it a show. We got to kick it over to a highly entertaining interview here with Chris Phillips, host of the Spurs Up Show. This is a good one here. All right, we're pleased to be joined once again by Chris Phillips. You know him, host of the Spurs Up Show, the outstanding South Carolina, not only football, but overall sports show. Chris, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate you.
Mike, I appreciate you having me, man. It's always a pleasure. Obviously, it's Carolina-Georgia week, and it just hits a little bit different. Obviously that border battle between the two schools. But, man, congratulations to you, by the way, your success. Been seeing you guys pop off. And I know we're just both glad it's the season, my man. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no doubt. And now let me ask you this, Chris. I really wanted to get your thoughts on this. Who do the Gamecocks hate more, Will Muschamp or Dabo Swinney? Who do they want to win over more?
I think it's still Dabo. I think it's definitely Dabo for sure because he's rocking the orange and purple. But I tell you, somebody did, I think, over the summer, obviously when you get in the off season, everybody's looking for something to talk about. There was somebody put out a top 5 most hated by South Carolina fans, and Muschamp was up there. It's crazy to think he was up there. Ray Tanner was up there, who's actually the current AD. So I tell you, man, it's wild. But no, Muschamp's definitely up there, and certainly we've had our fun this week picking at him with the dogs coming to town, and this will be his first visit back. But yeah, it's funny. I tell people, Mike, all the time, I disliked Muschamp before it was cool. You might remember. I mean, obviously you remember. So I now it's the cool thing to do. I was on that train way before everybody else. So yeah.
And we were on a call about a week ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, Chris, and you gave me some hell for KJ Jefferson for Heisman. Now that you've seen him in person, tear through the Gamecocks, I would imagine it's not as funny now, is it?
It's not quite as funny being on the, literal receiving end of his talents and his athleticism. Yeah, I was watching, and maybe this is an over-exaggeration or a stretch, but I was like, this guy's Cam Newton Jr. I mean, that's what he looked like to me. Just, the Gamecocks just bouncing off of him, and it's funny. He only quote unquote threw for, I think 165 yards in the game, but it's because they didn't have to throw him, and he went 18 of 21. So it's like he obviously showed he can throw the football, and obviously he's just one guy just seems like it can't bring him down. You know what I mean? So he's a dynamic dual threat guy. He's got some really good players on his offense to help him as well. Rocket Sanders, we got a heavy dose of, and those receivers on the outside. So, Arkansas is a really, really good football team. And of course, a big physical offensive line, but yeah. KJ Jefferson's the truth. I don't know if he's going to win the Heisman, but he's got my respect for sure.
Now, let me ask you this, because I haven't spoken to you, Chris, since Texas and Oklahoma officially coming to the league. And I promise we'll get to the Gamecocks more on this season after this. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you like it as a South Carolina guy? Because, you see mixed emotions. Some people say, well, how the hell are we going to win the SEC? It's difficult now. How are we going to do it with Texas and Oklahoma joining the league? Personally, I think, Chris, adding them, we already know the SEC is a cut above everybody. I think you add those two, they're a natural fit for the league. And, here's a perfect example I use, Chris. South Carolina right now, they recruit well, but at times, maybe they lose a battle to, I don't know, Georgia Tech or Florida State or Miami. That may still happen when Texas and Oklahoma join the league, but I guarantee it's going to happen a hell of a lot less because nobody of elite caliber is going to go want to play in these damn junior leagues when they could go to the mini NFL. I think while some people look at it as this is just going to make the SEC too difficult, I think it raises the entire conference. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I like it. I think you got to embrace competition, obviously. And I think it's going to create some really fun, unique matchups. I mean, we just saw Alabama, Texas, and everybody thought that was going to be a blowout. And, give credit to the Longhorns. They took them down to the wire, and you could argue maybe they should have won the ball game. But, I mean, from the South Carolina perspective, listen, it's already tough, man. I mean, it's you already know what you're up against. So, I mean, I just say you might know more on this than I do, but I'm curious if the pod thing is going to happen at any point. Are they going to keep 2 8-team divisions? But I mean, either way, I think you just got to, you got to stay and fight and embrace competition. And I mean, who doesn't want more good football? And I think especially from the fan side of things, right? We're looking forward to taking trips to Austin and Norman. And so, I mean, I'm all for, and I think outside of just football, right? I mean, South Carolina's played Texas in baseball, and, Oklahoma's, I think they just went to Omaha, obviously has a really good program there. And then on the hardwood as well, Texas and OU have done good things. So, I think from the SEC standpoint, I know obviously for you, it's great for content, right? It's 2 more rabid fan bases to entertain and talk to and talk crap to from time to time. I'm sure you'll be throwing a couple horns down here and there, but, and I've got horns down merch too. So maybe it helps me, but no, I think, like you mentioned, man, it's the way college football is moving with the expansion, and you add two storied programs like that. I think you tip your cap and give your kudos to the SEC for being kind of out ahead of everything and making that move and making that splash, and Greg Sankey being the real MVP. So I think it's great for the league, and I think as a fan, you just got to embrace it, right? Because it's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. Now, recently on the Spurs Up show, after suffering first loss of the season, there's always panic. There's panic across all the SEC when a team drops a game, even if it's on the road against what I think is the second best team in the SEC right now, a top 5 program in Arkansas, at least this season. Can you tell us why you are not hitting this panic button after a tough loss on the road to one of the best teams in the country?
Yeah, Mike, I think it's just one of those things where I looked at the season and I felt like since the summer, when I dropped my preseason predictions in July, I looked at this game against Arkansas, and I'm like you. I didn't know if Arkansas, though, was a top 10 team, but I knew they were going to be a really, really good football team. 9-win, maybe 10-win football team. You look at what Sam Pittman's built there, what they did last year. I didn't like the matchup since the summer. We knew line of scrimmage was a problem area, a deficiency. Even if the Gamecocks made strides, we knew it was going to be a tough task. And again, going into Fayetteville. So I predicted a 1-2 start. I thought early in this year, the offense, it was going to take some time to click. Obviously, again, you look at the offensive line and the struggles on the line of scrimmage and the teams that you are playing, you were going to learn a lot about yourself, but I think I just had realistic expectations coming in. And again, you just tip your cap and give credit to Arkansas. That loss in Fayetteville does not define this season for South Carolina. And again, it was never a good matchup for the Gamecocks. So you were able to draw some positives. Of course, there's no moral victories at all. Draw some positives on the offensive side, seeing a guy like Rattler have some success, Antoine Wells emerging. I think the biggest area of concern right now, though, Mike, is the defensive front. I think you couldn't stop the run very effectively last year, but I really thought that group, while they wouldn't be elite by any means, I thought they would take a positive step forward. And it's really disturbing when you see they've given up 200 yards rushing against Georgia State and then 295 against Arkansas, and it felt like for the Hogs, Mike, it was easy. I mean, they were just pushing South Carolina around, no big deal. Now you lose Mo Kaba and Jordan Strong on your defense for the season, and now, of course, you got the Georgia Bulldogs coming to town, so it gets no easier. But I think, again, most realistic Gamecock fans understood you were going to have to weather the storm early. I don't know many folks that were picking South Carolina to start anything better than 1-2. So I think I just had realistic expectations coming in, but obviously still there does need to be improvements across the board, especially when you talk line of scrimmage. But I think as we go throughout the season, there are going to be more favorable matchups for South Carolina. And then, Mike, to top it all off, the reason I'm not panicking, it's year 2 of the Beamer era, man. It's too early to panic. I still believe even coming out of Arkansas, this team can still get to 7 wins, maybe even mess around and get to 8. As we all know, I mean, look, Mike, at the SEC, Texas A&M just lost to App State. I mean, you just never know. Florida last year, right? Florida early on, I know they were a different football team with a different coach. Played Alabama close, though. People thought, oh, man, Florida's this, that. When the Gamecocks played them, they were a train wreck. So, I mean, you just never know, man. It's such a week-to-week game, and I still think there's pieces on this football team, to get to at least 7-5. So, yeah, I'm definitely not hitting the panic button yet on this team in this football season.
Wow, a level-headed take from you, Chris. That's unexpected, but I do appreciate it because I think you're 100% on. You just played a hell of a team. You're gonna play another hell of a team here on Saturday. But Speaking of that, why is it such an issue, you think, for the Gamecocks to stop the run? They just don't have the bodies up there. I mean, they got a couple 5-stars. So, I don't want to call those guys busts by any means. They can't do it all by themselves or anything. But what's your thoughts on why South Carolina has had this issue for going on 2 years now?
Yeah, Mike, I mean, that's been the maddening issue because I can look at the offensive front and say, maybe, you know what, maybe they are just kind of limited talent-wise. You look at some of the guys, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but as a whole, there's a reason. I'll say this, and I said this in the midst of that game on Saturday. You look at the Gamecocks recruiting class right now, Mike, and it's all offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and it's a class ranked 15th. Like, they are addressing the problem in recruiting, and that's just what you have to do. You have deficiencies in those areas, but on the defensive front specifically, Mike, I do my position unit preview series and I grade each position unit. And I think I gave the defensive line like a C, maybe a C+, but a lot of folks came down on me like, God, you're sleeping on the D line. Why are you being so hard on the D line? And I'm like, I need them to show me something because it just feels like every single year, Gamecock Nation, we're hyping up the D line. You have these flashy names and what the stars are telling you in recruiting services. And it just doesn't feel like we're getting the most out of what we have. And so I think early on, Mike, I'll tell you this, I think we do have very capable bodies up front. I think deficiencies at linebacker hurt this football team. I think that's been a problem area for quite some time. And I think they're obviously working to upgrade that in recruiting as well. But, I don't know. I mean, it's a great question, man, because Shane Beamer too, and obviously I'm not coming at Shane Beamer, but he spent the entire preseason talking about the defensive tackles, and they're the deepest, best position group on the football team. And it's like, you're at least not seeing that right now. And I just felt like the entire summer, like, I'm fine with you saying that, but if you're going to spend the entire summer saying that, you got to see improvement in the run defense. I mean, you just have to. And, they know they've got to stop the run better, obviously, but it's definitely been disappointing for sure. And it's something that Gamecock fans, we have a tough time wrapping our brains around because, like you mentioned, man, there's a couple 5-stars up there and guys with talent and guys that are hyped up. And for whatever reason, it just has not clicked.
Now, this may be crazy, Chris, but, we all think of Georgia as this rushing machine. They're actually 10th in the SEC this season in rushing. Of course, maybe that's a product of game plan and everything. And Stetson Bennett is just incredibly hot right now. Is it crazy to think that if you're South Carolina, you dare Georgia to beat you on the ground? Because, I mean, Stetson, he just diced up Oregon.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be quite their game plan because I feel like if you dare Georgia to beat you on the ground, they will. The numbers say they will. I think they'll gladly take it. Yeah, listen, it's a Herculean task for the Gamecocks this weekend, or we'll take a Herculean effort, I should say, because I'm just looking at their numbers right now. I mean, like you mentioned, Mike, they're averaging 395.5 pass yards per game, just 129.5 on the ground. But like you mentioned, Stetson Bennett, I think he's very underrated. People call him a game manager or whatever. I know he's on a great team, but the guy does one heck of a job. You know what I mean? He does a heck of a job. He's played great football to this point. So I do not envy the position that Clayton White is in this week, the Gamecocks defensive coordinator, trying to figure out how he's going to stop them and slow them down. I feel like for the third straight week, I'm saying the same thing, Mike, though, is that if they can run the ball at will, you just have no chance. And it's going to be one of those demoralizing, like it felt like to me, and everybody wants to look at the Arkansas game and point at Spencer Rattler and Marcus Satterfield's play calling. And I understand, right? Especially when you lose, everything gets nitpicked. But you made this point as well on social media about, how many points the defense allowed. And it never felt like we had Arkansas in a position where like they were on their heels and we were on the attack on defense. Like, I feel like Arkansas just kind of controlled us and moved us around. And unfortunately, I feel like it could be more of the same with Georgia. So, it'll be interesting to see how they attack. Unfortunately, you saw the report from Shane Beamer yesterday. You got some questionables in the secondary, including Cam Smith, your preseason All-American. Now, I think he's going to be good to go. But this is a banged-up football team, and unfortunately, they're facing a red-hot Georgia team. So averaging 41 points per game, by the way, and they have not allowed a touchdown on defense as well. So I tell you, you look at this Georgia football team, and I don't want to over-exaggerate and give them more credit than they deserve, but I don't feel like it is when I say I don't know that I even see a weakness. And I think, Georgia plays their A game. I don't think there's anybody in the country good enough to beat them besides Alabama. I think they're that good. And I picked them to go undefeated in the regular season for a reason. So, I guess it's pick your poison. I mean, I guess if you want to dare Georgia to run, I guess you can, but I don't know that's going to be a wise decision. On that note, by the way, Mike, because I know that Prize Picks is one of your partners as well, and I'm not trying to give them a free ad, but they're over-under on Stetson Bennett passing yards against South Carolina, 294 and a half. I thought that was really high because, like you said, Bennett is hot, but like I don't think Georgia's going to have to throw. I mean, but if nothing else, I think it's a benefit for the Dogs because I feel like they probably know they can run. You know what I mean? So if Bennett's clicking too, they've got options. So it'll be interesting to see how Carolina attacks it, though.
Well, speaking of quarterback play, I have to ask you about Spencer Rattler. Your thoughts on him after 2 games? So much hype and anticipation.
Right.
I don't want to say I'd say he's just been kind of inconsistent. He showed the talent, but hell, the first game he was running for his life. I thought against Arkansas there was opportunities down the field. Either him or his receivers just not on the same page. A couple overthrows. He makes a couple of those throws. Maybe it's a different ball game. Right. And secondly, with that, are you surprised at all? I mean, it's not like it's all the fan base, but we're already seeing Marcus Satterfield, we got to fire this guy after 2 games. And again, the defense lost you the last game. And again, if Spencer is maybe a little bit more accurate, it's a different story. So surprised to see heat coming for the OC already.
Well, number one, no, I'm not surprised at all because many folks came into this season fairly or unfairly. Marcus Satterfield is guilty until proven innocent. When you finish, last year, and you know this, Mike, as well as anybody, coaches don't get 5, 6, 7 years to figure it out. Let's get our guys in here. Like if you're not winning by like year 3, a lot of the fan base wants you out. There's just no patience anymore. Right. So, you finished 116th in offense last year and a lot of folks came in this season. They already were out on Satterfield. So any sign of not having immense offensive success, they were going to come at him. In regards to Rattler, I think he's played fine. I mean, I've been asked a lot this week, through 2 games, has he met the expectations? Has he met the hype? And I'm like, well, I guess it kind of depends on what your expectations were and how much you hyped him up. I mean, I think like you mentioned, all things considered, when you factor in no running game, an offensive line that especially in week 1 could not really pass block for him. I thought they were better against Arkansas, not great. I think all things considered, he's played fine. Like you mentioned, he's been inconsistent. And you go on the road in the SEC and you lose by 14 points and you miss a couple of those long shots. And for example, you play Georgia this weekend, you're only going to get a couple of those shots a game, and you got to hit them when you do, right, to beat a really, really good football team. But the thing about the game against Arkansas is that, his play is highlighted or nitpicked because he had to play perfect to give this team any chance to win because the defense was so bad. You know what I mean? Like, if the defense had a great day and he has the exact same numbers, oh, he had a fantastic game, right? Like, Rattler battled through the early adversity, missing those throws to lead us to victory. Like, the entire storyline's different. So, this is a big week for him, Mike. I think we'd all agree. The national spotlight will be on him. He's going up against an elite in college football, and he's obviously got, for his personal reasons or his personal career, big dreams and aspirations for the NFL. So this will be a great test for him. But there's 10 other guys. I put a lot of it on 7. It all comes down to him. But Yeah, he's been running for his life a lot and not getting support in a run game. And, I still think the receiver room is not as deep as it needs to be. I mean, it was great seeing Antoine Wells last week flash. I think he'll be a guy on a weekly basis that could help you. They desperately need Josh Vann to, I don't know where he's at. They need him to get going. They need to get Jaheim Bell involved. 0 catches last week. I mean, it can't happen. So I think they've got weapons on that side. Again, to this point, though, I'd say Rattler has been fine. I think he's got more in the tank, obviously, and can be better. But he looks like, to be fair, he looks like a guy in a brand new offense with a brand new supporting cast playing for a brand new offensive coordinator. So I think realistically, we expected it was going to take some time. And Mike, I don't want to jump too far ahead because I know we're talking this Georgia game, but I tell you what, maybe the most important 2-week stretch of this season is going to be the 2 games against Charlotte and SC State, just for this team to kind of figure it all out. You know what I mean? Because after that, good luck going into Lexington trying to figure it out. Good luck playing A&M and Tennessee and Florida. Like you need to find out who you are in those 2 weeks before you really get into the heat of SEC play. So I've been fine with Rattler's play, but dude, it's SEC football. I mean, again, the fan bases, I'm not shocked at all how folks have reacted. And, again, I would just try to ask folks, keep a level head and let's just see what happens. I still believe that Spencer Rattler will have a good year for this team.
So what is the recipe for South Carolina to pull a stunning upset this weekend over Georgia, and what's your prediction for the game?
Well, I think we need Georgia to be out at Buddha Bar all week in Athens and show up a little fat and happy. You know what I mean? No, I think you look back to 2019, Mike, and I made this point that the spread has now dropped from 26 to 24.5, which ironically enough was the spread back in 2019 when the Gamecocks went to Athens and just did the unthinkable. And weird things happened, right, for that to happen. And it took the Gamecocks even going to overtime to get the win, and Blankenship had to miss the kick and all that. You need weird things to happen again. Georgia can't play their A game. You need Georgia to, again, whether it's they're overconfident or maybe Oregon was just that bad or whatever, you need Georgia to play sloppy. If Georgia plays their best game, it won't matter. So you need the Dogs to be sloppy. You need to muddy the game up, force a couple turnovers, whether that's interceptions from Stetson Bennett or for whatever reason. Hey, weird things can happen, right? Georgia's putting the football on the ground for whatever reason. I think you need a defensive score. I think Beamer ball, you need a special teams score. Spencer Rattler's obviously got to be at his elite level. The defensive line has got to play their absolute best game. And all those things happen, and you might have a shot late in the fourth quarter to steal one or pull, I think, what would probably be the biggest upset in the college football season, at least to this point, for sure. So a lot of weird things need to happen, and sometimes they do in South Carolina, Georgia, but you can't predict that, right? You can't bank on that. I'm certainly not. It's funny you asked me the score prediction. I haven't really nailed it down, but I'll go ahead and give you an early one. I think 41-10 Dogs. I took the under. I think the under hits, but dude, all you can go off is what you've seen to this point. Georgia hadn't allowed a touchdown yet. I think the Gamecocks do score one, but I think Georgia's elite in all 3 phases. I don't see a position group that South Carolina has an advantage at. I don't know how South Carolina's going to move the football. I mean, they're going to have to spread Georgia out. How much success will they have? I don't know. And then there's nothing. I mean, I hate to say this, but with the vast just advantage on the line of scrimmage, it almost feels like a name your score game for Georgia. I mean, it really, and I hate to say that, but I just think the trenches, it's just such a problem area for South Carolina. It's so glaring. You got to think Kirby and his crew and Monken, I mean, they're just sitting there licking their chops, man. They know what South Carolina's problems are, and I think they're going to do everything they can to expose it. And, everybody want to talk about Georgia's defense, and are they going to be as good as that defense was last year, that historically great defense? No. But, I mean, this year's crop of new guys is just next year's draft picks, right? Like, they're just that good. So, I've got 41-10. I picked it way too close last week, Mike. So I'm going in with even more conservative predictions, 38-13, 41-10. What the hell's the difference? I don't see the upset happening is all that really matters. So I think the Dogs win. I think they win big on Saturday at Willie B.
Well, let me get you out of here on something a little bit more positive, Chris. Let's say, if South Carolina, the goal right now should not be to win the damn East as much as you want that to happen. That the goal needs to be climbing the ladder. And the only way that's going to happen is you got to snap some of these streaks. I'm thinking Kentucky, which is on the road. A&M comes to town, and they're trending poorly right now. Tennessee comes to Williams-Brice. Those 3 games, which one? If I were right now to guarantee you that South Carolina is going to win one of those games. Which one do you think is the most realistic for this team to beat this season?
Well, I think I've got to go with the one that I picked in the preseason, and that's Kentucky. I know it's on the road, but the reason I picked it over the summer is that in the quarterback battle, I thought Rattler's going to outduel Will Levis, and one of the reasons too I picked that as a victory, and because I think A&M terrible loss to Appalachian State. But A&M's a better football team than that. They get it figured out at quarterback. I mean, you probably know more than me. I haven't kept up with the Aggies too close to this point. I don't know. Is Haynes King going to be the guy again? I don't know. But they've got talent over the place. I think Tennessee late in the season. I think the Volunteers are for real. I think I picked them in the preseason to go 9-3, finish second in the East. They're clicking right now. Obviously, great win over Pittsburgh. So I'd go Kentucky. And I think, again, that 2-week stretch playing Charlotte, SC State, I think that's going to be a great opportunity for this football team to heal up, right, to get rested, for a lot of guys to develop confidence. So I think South Carolina should go into that football game at 3-2, feeling as good as they felt all season. So out of those 3 games, again, I picked South Carolina to beat Kentucky in the preseason. I know Kentucky looks great right now. I still I kind of wonder what Kentucky is, right? I wonder what they are, because Florida came crashing back down to earth. I actually took the Cats plus 4.5. I felt like, dude, Florida jumps from unranked to 12th. Like, come on. Like, really? Are they that good? And, I mean, Kentucky was the beneficiary of Anthony Richardson sometimes just doesn't know how to throw it to his own team, I guess. But, either way, the Cats are good, no doubt. You got to respect Mark Stoops. They've owned South Carolina. But in that battle between those 2 quarterbacks, I think it'll be a great game. I did pick the Gamecocks in the preseason. I'm going to stick with that. And out of those 3 you mentioned, I think the best chance does come, believe it or not, on the road in Lexington against the Wildcats.
Well, Chris, you're always welcome here because you didn't say Tennessee. Can you tell the audience where to find all your work?
So we're at the Spurs Up Show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, of course. We're on TikTok even. You want to go check that out. YouTube as well. The podcast drops 3 times per week, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. That's under the name The Spurs Up Show. And then we have a daily live show called The Daily Crow, which airs noon to 2 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And you can kind of think of that sort of as your South kind of version of Paul Feinbaum, because we take calls and questions, and we have the callers are kind of the personalities of the show. And, I love when opposing fan bases call in and, the week of the games and give their perspective and talk a little trash. And I mean, that's what makes it fun, man. So, but at the Spurs Up Show all across the board, thespursupshow.com. We've even got a store, tsus.store. I think all fans could enjoy the horns down merch. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to obviously chatting with you next week. I know we'll do it next week after. Hopefully, like you mentioned, the Gamecocks have pulled maybe the biggest upset of the college football season. And yeah, man, like I said, anytime, would love to talk ball and appreciate you having me.
All right, Shane. So just want to say thanks again to Chris for joining the show. And I'm scheduled to be on his show next week. So if you're a listener of that show, be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be on the Tuesday show. So that was some good stuff there from Chris, didn't you think?
Heck yeah, man! It's always good having him on and talking a little. And I like, again, you could sense it. Everybody's like this when they're facing Georgia, It's like, you got a tough game coming up, but there's a lot to be optimistic about down there in Columbia. And Mike, this was a hell of a show. Great idea. I'm glad you came up with it.
I appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, I threw you off.
Well, I appreciate you, Shane. I appreciate any idea you want to throw at me. It's such a great one. I love hitting on all 14 SEC teams when we can. But this has been a long one, so I think I'm going to cut it off here unless you got anything before we hop off.
Just don't forget, Friday Spaces, we're going to be on 8 o'clock Friday, talk a little college foosball. So be sure to grab a cold beer and join us. But other than that, Mike, I've got nothing.
Okay. Well, as always, brother, I appreciate you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. When are we going to do our picks?